Welcome, and thank you for joining today's FIPSE Basic Needs for Post-Secondary Students Program Fiscal Year 2026 Pre-Application Technical Assistance webinar. Please note the application open period from May 21 to June 23rd, 2026. If you have questions about the webinar, you can reach us via email at Basic Needs for Post-Secondary Students Program at ed.gov, and you can visit our webpage on the link indicated on the slide. Before we begin, please note that the application notice and instructions, or ANI, document posted in grants.gov is the official guide for submitting your application. This webinar is meant to provide technical assistance. If you encounter any information that differs from the information in the official ANI document, always refer to the ANI document published in grants.gov. The fiscal year 2026 application of notice for new awards was published on May 28, 2026, and the application deadline is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026 at 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. If your application is 1 second late, it is late and will not be accepted. Therefore, please submit your application early to allow for any technical or other issues that may arise. To access the application package, visit grants.gov and search for Assistance Listing Number, or ALN, 84.116N as in needs, or the Funding Opportunity Number, ed-26-034. Additional information and frequently asked questions, or FAQs, will be available on the FIPSE Basic Needs Program webpage and in the Related Documents tab on grants.gov. Again, please remember the application notice and instructions document is the controlling document for this competition. The purpose of the FIPSE Basic Needs for Post-Secondary Students program is to advance systematic and sustainable solutions to student basic needs in security through support programs that address the basic needs of students, and to report on practices that improve outcomes for students. The key phrase is systemic and sustainable. Applicants should show how the project changes the way the institution identifies student needs, connects students to resources, follows up, and uses data to improve outcomes. The applicable laws and regulations that cover the Basic Needs Program are in the statute reference on the slide in 20 USC 1138-1138D and the related appropriations language noted on the slide. Please note that all projects will be awarded and must be operated in a manner consistent with all federal civil rights laws, including non-discrimination requirements. Applicable regulations for this competition include the Education Department General Administrative Regulations, also known as EDGAR, OMB guidelines related to suspension and debarment, the Uniform Guidance, as listed on the slide, and the Secretary's Supplemental Priorities from 2025. As we stated before, the opportunity number for this competition is ed/grant/26/034. We anticipate approximately $10 million in available funds to make awards. The estimated range of awards is $1 million to $5 million for the 48-month project period. An average award will be approximately $1 million for the 48-month period, and the maximum annual award is $5 million for the 48-month period. Note that the 48-month project period should be used to move from planning and partner development to implementation, evaluation, scaling, and sustainability. We expect to make between 2 and 10 awards. Please note that the department is not bound by any estimates in the ANI document. And again, we remind you that the application deadline is Tuesday, June 23rd at 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. We do encourage you to monitor grants.gov often for updates and other important information, such as periods of maintenance when the system will be unavailable for receiving applications. Moving on to eligibility, please note that under this competition, there are 3 major categories of eligible entities. The first is institutions of higher education, or IHEs, as defined in Section 101 of the Higher Education Act of 1965 as amended, consortia or systems of eligible IHEs, and public and private nonprofit organizations and agencies. Please note that state education agencies, or SEAs, and state higher education agencies, or SHIAs, are eligible in this competition as public agencies. If you are a nonprofit organization, you must include in your application documentation of your nonprofit status by providing at least one of the following items noted on this slide: an Internal Revenue Service document that you have been classified under Section 501 of the IRS Code, a statement from the state taxing body of your state certifying that your organization is a nonprofit organization, a certified copy of your organization's certificate of incorporation or similar document that clearly establishes your nonprofit status, or any item described above, if that item applies to a state or national parent organization, together with a statement by the state or parent organization that the applicant is a local nonprofit affiliate. Please be sure to include this information in your application if you are a nonprofit organization. This applies to both the lead applicant who is a nonprofit and a partner organization who is a nonprofit. Moving on then to the competition's priorities for fiscal year 2026. This year, the Basic Needs Program competition has 3 priorities: 1 Competitive Preference Priority, or CPP, and 2 Invitational Priorities, or IPs. Both priorities are optional. An applicant may receive 0 or 10 points depending on the quality of its response for the CPP. An applicant will not receive any points for its response to either of the invitational priorities. The priorities should not be treated as standalone attachments. Strong applications will carry the selected or addressed priorities through the abstract, project narrative, project design, management plan, evaluation plan, budget, and attachments. The Competitive Preference Priority, or CPP. You will receive points for designing a project where you are returning education to the states, as identified by the Secretary's Supplemental Priorities of 2025. Specifically, we are looking for projects or proposals that will be carried out by one or more of the following entities: state educational agencies, as identified in 20 U.S.C. 780149, state workforce development agencies or boards, state vocational rehabilitation agencies, state higher education agencies as identified in 20 USC 100322, an Indian tribe, tribal organization, or tribal educational agency as defined in the legal citations noted, or a consortium of entities identified under this priority. Continuing with the CPP, we remind you again that applicants will be awarded either 0 or 10 points under the CPP, as there is no range of points for this priority. Responding to this priority must include a letter from the corresponding agency that identifies that agency and includes the work of the partnership with the applicant. We refer you to the Annie for additional guidance on preparing that letter. In addition, please note that each state may submit only one application for the state higher education agency category. You must clearly label within the project narrative your response to the priority, and it must also be noted in the abstract and in the other attachments form. In the other attachments form, you will include the required letter, as explained in the Annie document. Finally, state workforce development agencies or board are specifically relevant because basic needs supports can be connected to state workforce priorities, work-based learning, credentials, and economic security. If a state higher education or state workforce entity is involved, the narrative should explain what authority, resources, data, partnerships, or statewide implementation capacity the state entity brings. For the invitational priorities, the first invitational priority is for basic needs security. Under this priority, the department is looking for projects that are designed to conduct surveys or assessments of student basic needs, leverage state, local, and institutional partnerships and resources to provide additional resources to their students, coordinate and collaborate with government and community-based organizations to execute these activities, and prioritize students enrolled at institutions with high percentage of Pell participants. Applicants should document need, conduct assessments, connect students to existing resources, coordinate with community partners, prioritize high Pell populations, and make any direct services part of a systemic prevention and sustainability plan. For the second invitational priority, the department is looking for projects that are connecting students to work-based learning, projects that are designed to promote long-term economic security of students by connecting these students to work-based learning opportunities for which a student may receive wages and/or academic credit, and other strategies including promoting artificial intelligence and the artificial intelligence literacy framework that is linked on the slide, and that support the attainment of industry-recognized post-secondary credentials, including registered apprenticeships. Applicants should explain the work-based learning model, employer role, wages or academic credit, student eligibility, basic need barriers that may prevent participation, credential connection, AI literacy component if applicable, and outcome measures. For the invitational priorities, we remind you that an applicant will not receive any additional points for responding to these priorities. However, we do ask that if you respond to the priorities, that you note the different elements that are required in responding to these priorities, and that, as with the competitive preference and the selection criteria, that you clearly label within the project narrative, the abstract, and the other attachment form your responses to the priorities. On this slide, We provide additional guidance on how to demonstrate that the project is connecting students to work-based learning. For many students, basic needs supports make work-based learning possible. A student may need transportation assistance, childcare, food support, emergency aid, or schedule coordination to take advantage of an internship, apprenticeship, clinical placement, or paid work experience. For example, a strong application will demonstrate how its work-based learning is structured, intentional, and connected to a student pathway. It will describe the type of work-based learning, such as internship, clinical placement, registered apprenticeship, or the model. Explain whether students receive wages, academic credit, or both. Identify employer, workforce board, or other partner commitments. Explain how basic needs support helps students participate in work-based learning. Connect work-based learning to industry-recognized post-secondary credentials, registered apprenticeships, employment, or further education, and measure participation, completion, and other outcomes where available. On this slide, we discuss the reasons why basic needs belong in a workforce strategy. We emphasize that basic needs support is not separate from workforce development. It is often a precondition for workforce success. If a student cannot afford food, housing, childcare, transportation, or emergency costs, that student may not be able to complete the program, show up for a work-based learning placement, or earn the credential that leads to employment. For instance, basic need insecurity can disrupt attendance, concentration, course completion, persistence, and credential attainment. Students facing basic needs insecurity may have difficulty participating in internships or other work-based learning opportunities. Basic needs supports can help students remain on a pathway to completion and employment. You should explain the connection between student stability and long-term economic security. And finally, where appropriate, you should identify the target programs, credentials, employers, or workforce sectors connected to the student population served. On this slide, we review how to use the U.S. Department of Labor's AI literacy framework in basic needs projects. The key is to connect AI literacy to practical outcomes, safer use of AI, better information evaluation, more effective career navigation, stronger work-based learning preparation, and better readiness for an AI-enabled workforce. Applicants that include AI should align project activities with the U.S. Department of Labor's AI literacy framework. AI literacy should be treated as a workforce readiness skill and a student support skill, not simply a technology purchase. Students should learn how to understand AI concepts, use AI tools appropriately, evaluate AI-generated information, protect privacy, and apply human judgment. Faculty, advisors, navigators, and student support staff may also need AI literacy training if they use AI-supported tools in advising, resource navigation, or career services. Applicants should describe how AI literacy will be taught, practiced, assessed, and connected to student success or workforce outcomes. And finally, AI-supported tools should include human review for accuracy, bias, accessibility, privacy, and relevance to student needs. Next, we will discuss the roles of career navigation, benefit access, and work-learn balance. Students often need help balancing work, school, benefits, childcare, transportation, and financial decisions. A strong project can connect basic needs support with career navigations so students do not have to choose between immediate survival and long-term opportunity. Basic needs advising should help students stabilize their lives while remaining on track academically and economically. Applicants may describe integrated navigation that connects students to benefits, emergency aid, food, housing, childcare, mental health, transportation, academic advising, financial aid, and career services. Projects should also help students understand the interaction between work, benefits, course load, scheduling, childcare, transportation, and credential completion. Career navigation may include information on credentials, labor market outcomes, work-based learning options, registered apprenticeships, and employment pathways. Applicants should explain how navigators, advisors, or case managers coordinate with workforce partners and community resources. On this slide, we suggest a practical design checklist for the invitational priorities. Please note that direct services are allowable only when they are part of a broader systemic plan. The narrative should explain how the project prevents and addresses basic needs insecurity, not simply how it distributes short-term aid. Define the basic needs problem using student level, institutional, local, or state data. Describe how student need will be assessed at enrollment and during the academic year. Identify existing campus, local, state, and federal resources that students can access. Explain how partnerships will provide additional resources rather than duplicate services. Prioritize students with the greatest need, including students enrolled at institutions with high percentages of Pell recipients. Explain how direct services are part of a systemic plan to prevent and address basic needs insecurity. And lastly, measure outcomes such as service uptake, persistence, retention, completion, and reduced stop out. Now that we have thoroughly addressed the competition's priorities, we will provide guidance on designing a strong basic needs project. This slide should help you as applicants avoid presenting basic needs activities as a list of services. Peer reviewers will need to see a plan, how students are identified, how they are connected to resources, who follows up, how the institution knows where the service worked, and how the system will continue after the project period. A strong basic needs project should be more than a collection of disconnected services. Applicants should describe a coordinated system for identifying need, connecting students to resources, following up, and using data for continuous improvement. Systemic design may include student surveys, intake screening, case management, benefits navigation, warm handoffs, emergency aid protocols, partner referral agreements, and coordinated data systems. Sustainable design should explain what will continue after federal funding ends and which institutional or community partners will support continuation. Applications should show how basic needs supports are integrated with advising, financial aid, student success, academic programs, and workforce career services. Moving on to the project abstract. You must include a project abstract in your application. The abstract should not exceed 1 page, and it should use language that will be understood by a range of audiences. In addition, it should include the following required elements: project title, goals, and expected outcomes and contributions related to research policy and practice, responses to competitive preference and/or invitational priorities, if applicable, populations to be served, whether Pell-heavy populations are prioritized, primary activities to be performed by the recipient, major services, work-based learning, or AI literacy focus, if applicable, subrecipient activities that are known or specified at the time of application submission, workforce readiness outcomes, and a sustainability plan. The project narrative is the most important part of the application, and this is where you provide responses to the required selection criteria for this competition and for any competitive preference or invitational priorities to which you choose to respond. Do not write the priority narrative as an isolated add-on. Show how the priorities shape the need, design, management, evaluation, and budget. The project narrative should be attached as a single document to the project narrative attachment form in grants.gov and should be organized in the manner noted in the ANI, including all of the parts noted in the ANI. Ensure that you only use the edit-approved files type detailed in the 2025 Common Instructions, which are noted in the ANI. When you're attaching files, you should make sure that you limit the size of your file name to facilitate the review process. In addition, your project narrative should contain a table of contents, and it should be organized according to the order of the narrative that you have provided for the required selection criteria and any priorities to which you choose to respond to. We encourage you to limit this part of your application to no more than 65 double-spaced pages. Please note that the project narrative refers only to your responses to the selection criteria and the priorities. We do not consider the 65-page limit to apply to the cover sheet, the budget section, the budget narrative justification, the assurances and certifications, the abstract, the resumes, or any of the other documents that you are including with your application package. The 65-page suggested limit is only for the project narrative, where you are directly responding to the selection criteria and any priorities that you wish to respond to. The budget narrative is also required, and it should justify federal spending for each line item across each project year. Include personnel, fringe benefits, travel, equipment, supplies, contractual costs, other direct costs, indirect costs, and total project costs. Make clear that direct services, technology, AI tools, personnel, project coordination, and evaluation costs are necessary, reasonable, allowable, and tied to project activities and outcomes. Also, you must provide a cost breakdown for each budget category. For example, in personnel, you should specify each position paid for with grant funds for each year of the project. In equipment and supplies, for example, you should describe all equipment and supplies to be purchased with grant funds for each year and include per unit costs. For contractual, you should include any information regarding consultants and subcontracts. Name the consultants and subcontracts if you know them at the time of application. Provide a description of the work that they will be providing and how much they will be paid for each project year. Remember that the budget narrative attachment form is separate from the budget form. The budget narrative describes and breaks down individual costs for each project year for each budget category that is indicated on the budget form. As I stated a moment ago, you should provide a breakdown of the categories as they are included in the budget form. Those categories are shown on this slide. Therefore, for each line item of the official budget form, there should be descriptions of what will be purchased or paid for each of those line items for each project year in the budget narrative. With respect to indirect costs, they are allowed for the Basic Needs Program, and this program uses an unrestricted indirect cost rate. If you do not have a negotiated rate with your federal cognizant agency, or you have questions about indirect costs, please refer to the webpage of the Indirect Cost Rate Division that's noted in the link on this slide. Here are some general guardrails to consider when developing your budget and planning for project sustainability. The budget should tell the same story as the project design. If the project says it will build a coordinated student support system, the budget should include the staff, partners, data systems, evaluation, and direct service resources needed to make that system real. If the project includes AI literacy or work-based learning, those costs should be clearly connected to training, implementation, and measurable outcomes. Specifically, every budget item should be necessary, reasonable, allocable, and tied to a specific project activity and measurable outcome. Budget items may include personnel, navigators, student support coordination, evaluation, technology, partner coordination, training, travel, supplies, contractual services, and direct services when allowable and part of a systemic plan. AI-related costs should be tied to student support, AI literacy, training, evaluation, accessibility, privacy, or project implementation, not treated as a general technology purchase. Work-based learning costs should be connected to student participation, employer coordination, transportation, or other basic need barriers, credential attainment, or measurable outcomes. Applicants should distinguish between one-time development costs and ongoing costs that will be sustained after the project period. Budget narratives should explain partner contributions, leverage resources, and continuation plans. Subgrantees are allowed under this competition. They may be used to directly carry out project activities described in your application. They do not have to be the same entity type as a lead applicant. However, a subgrantee must meet the eligibility requirements for this competition, meaning that a lead applicant can only provide subgrants to the following entities: IHEs and public and private nonprofit institutions and agencies, including state education agencies and state higher education agencies. Subgrantees and partners should be described by role, service, population served, deliverables, costs, and expected contribution to outcomes. For workforce-aligned projects, partner descriptions should explain employer, workforce board, apprenticeship sponsor, community organization, or state agency roles. Also, as mentioned previously, if the subgrantee is a nonprofit organization, they must also demonstrate its nonprofit status according to the requirements in the ANI. Therefore, whether it be a lead applicant or a subgrantee, all nonprofit organizations must provide evidence of their nonprofit status as part of the application package. Please ensure that you review the additional guidance for subgrantees on this slide, especially requirements around identifying the subgrantees in the project narrative and the abstract, and including the letters of commitment or support in the other attachments form section of the application. Now we move on to the selection criteria, which is the most important part of the application. The selection criteria from the competition are from 34 CFR 75.210. The 100-point selection criteria are where applicants demonstrate that the project is coherent. The project should connect basic needs data, services, partners, management, budget, evaluation, and sustainability. In the project narrative, the applicant will provide detailed responses to each selection criteria. Applicants should respond to the selection criteria in the same order as presented in the ANI. Applicants should clearly label each selection criterion and each factor or subcriterion within the larger selection criteria. The selection criteria are worth a total of 100 points, and the maximum score for each criterion is noted in parentheses. If an applicant responds to the competitive preference priority, 0 or 10 additional points will be awarded, for a total score of up to 110 points. As a point of emphasis, we want to remind you that you should be responding to the selection criteria in the same order in which they are presented in the ANI. This is not an opportunity for creative writing. You should be responding point by point to each factor within each selection criterion in the same order in which it is presented in the ANI document. Here are the selection criterion in a snapshot for this competition. There are 4 selection criteria with a total maximum score of 100 points and the opportunity to earn up to an additional 10 points for a maximum of 110 points if you respond to the competitive preference priority and are awarded the full 10 points. The first selection criterion is need, and under need there are 2 factors, each worth 5 points. Applicants should document student basic needs and security, Pell enrollment, retention completion gaps, barriers to work-based learning, barriers to credential completion, gaps in AI literacy or digital access if applicable, and state regional workforce context where relevant. Under need, the first factor is the magnitude of the need for the services to be provided or the activities to be carried out by the proposed project. The second factor, which is also worth 5 points, is the extent to which the specific nature and magnitude of those gaps or challenges are identified, and the extent to which the gaps or challenges will be addressed by the services, the support, the infrastructure, and the opportunities described in the proposed project. The quality of the project design has the highest number of points of all selection criteria. It is worth 45 points and is composed of 5 factors. The first factor is worth up to 15 points and looks at your goals, objectives, and outcomes. You should clearly specify how the goals, objectives, and outcomes to be achieved are specified, measurable, and ambitious, yet achievable within the project period and align with the purpose of the FIPSE Basic Needs Grant Program. The second factor is the extent to which the proposed project will integrate or build on ideas, strategies, and efforts from similar external projects to improve relevant outcomes using existing funding streams from other programs or policies supported by community, state, or federal resources. The next factor is the extent to which the proposed project demonstrates a rationale, as defined in this notice and is aligned with the purposes of the grant program. The project demonstrates a rationale by including a logic model that provides the framework for the project design. The fourth factor under project design is the extent to which the training or professional development services to be provided are of sufficient quality, intensity, and duration to build recipient and project capacity in ways that lead to improvement in practices among the recipients of your services. And finally, the last factor is the extent to which the design of the project demonstrates meaningful community engagement and input, ensuring that the project is appropriate to successfully address the needs of the participants or other identified needs of the project and will be used to inform continuous improvement strategies of the grant. On this slide, we provide guidance on developing the logic model required under the demonstrates a rationale factor. As you develop your logic model and build out your project design, bear in mind that every activity should lead to an outcome. If the applicant includes AI literacy, the logic model should show how AI literacy improves student support, career readiness, or workforce preparation. If the applicant includes work-based learning, the logic model should show how basic needs supports make participation possible. Please review the sample logic model on your own for ideas on how to design a framework that works for your project. The next selection criterion is the management plan, and this criterion is worth up to 25 points. The first factor within the management plan is worth 10 points and is concerning the feasibility of the management plan to achieve objectives and goals on time and within budget, including clearly defined responsibilities, timelines, and milestones for accomplishing project tasks. An organizational chart is very useful here. For the second factor, you should address the adequacy of plans for ensuring the use of quantitative and qualitative data, as well as meaningful community member and partner input to inform continuous improvement in the operation of your project. The third factor is where you will describe your capacity in terms of qualified personnel, financial resources, and general management capacity, together with any project partners, to bring the proposed project effectively to scale on a national or regional level during the project period. Timelines and milestones should include partner agreements, student screening launch, referral workflows, direct service protocols, work-based learning coordination, AI literacy rollout if applicable, evaluation data collection, and sustainability planning. The final selection criterion is the quality of the project evaluation or other evidence building, and this is worth up to 20 points. The first factor, which is worth 10 points, the highest of all factors within this criteria, concerns evaluation methods, specifically the extent to which your evaluation methods or other evidence building are thorough, feasible, relevant, and appropriate to the goals, objectives, and outcomes of your proposed project. The second factor is worth up to 7 points and considers the extent to which your evaluation methods include the use of objective performance measures that are clearly tied to the intended outcomes of the project and will produce both quantitative and qualitative data. Finally, for the last factor, the department considers the qualifications of the evaluator, specifically the extent to which the chosen evaluator has the qualifications, including pertinent training, experience, and independence that will be required to conduct an evaluation of your proposed project, including his or her experience conducting evaluations of similar methodology as proposed, and with the proposed population and setting of your proposed grant project. Moving on, these are the performance measures developed for the program. You are required to report on these measures as part of your reporting requirements, and you should consider these measures as you develop your evaluation plan. The performance measures should be integrated into the evaluation plan and not treated as an annual reporting afterthought. With that in mind, applicants should establish baselines and targets early. The performance measures require grantees to report on the percentage of low-income students served, the annual persistence rate of participants, the completion rates for the students that are served, and changes in basic needs and security among the students that are served. Basic needs projects often count services delivered, but stronger projects also measure whether students persist, complete, and move toward long-term economic security. Applicants should avoid overclaiming employment outcomes if they cannot measure them, but they can still track interim workforce readiness indicators such as participation in work-based learning, credential progress, and career navigation milestones. Some basic need measures to consider are number of students screened, types of needs identified, referrals completed, services received, emergency aid provided, follow-up completion, and student satisfaction. Academic measures could be persistence, retention, course completion, credit accumulation, reduced withdrawal or stop out, credential or degree progress, and completion. Workforce measures possibilities include work-based learning participation, wages or academic credit earned, internship apprenticeship completion, industry recognized credentials, employment, or further education where available. AI literacy measures could include competency gains, responsible use, evaluation of AI-generated information, privacy awareness, and application to academic or career tasks. Sustainability measures to consider would be partner resources leverage, institutionalization of services, ongoing funding commitments, continuation of referral systems, and post-grant maintenance. As you work to craft your application, you should not simply add the new DOL priorities as labels. These priorities should shape the project design, partnerships, evaluation plan, budget, and abstract. Some common weaknesses to avoid as you align your project design, performance measures, and evaluation plan with this year's priorities would be treating basic needs supports as disconnected services instead of a systemic plan, failing to explain how students will be identified, served, followed up with, and supported over time, naming partners without describing what each partner will do, mentioning work-based learning without describing the structure, employer role, wages credit, student eligibility, and outcomes, mentioning AI without using the Department of Labor AI literacy framework or measuring AI literacy outcomes, providing direct services without explaining how they fit into a prevention and sustainability strategy, using generic workforce language without identifying pathways, credentials, employers, state priorities, or student outcomes, budgeting technology, AI tools, or services without tying costs to objectives and outcomes, and overclaiming employment or earning outcomes without a credible data collection plan. Now we will speak about the review and selection process in general terms. We remind all applicants that in reviewing proposals for any discretionary grant competition under 34 CFR 75.217, the Secretary of Education may consider information outside the rank order of applications, including information relevant to a criterion, priority, or other requirement that applies to the selection of applications for new grants, concerning your performance and use of funds under a previous grant project under any department program, and also concerning the applicant's failure under any department program to submit a performance report or submitting a performance report, final, annual, or interim of unacceptable quality that indicates that substantial progress was not made. We remind applicants as they prepare their applications to ensure that they meet all of the requirements of the program, and this includes submitting all of the required forms and application elements as noted in the ANI. There is a checklist in the ANI that we will review in a few moments. Check and double check that checklist to ensure that all required elements have been included in your application package. For this competition, we will use non-federal peer reviewers that have expertise in areas pertinent to this grant program. All peer reviewers will be screened for conflicts of interest to ensure a fair and competitive review process. Peer reviewers will prepare a written evaluation of and score the assigned applications using the public selection criterion and the competitive preference and invitational priorities if applicable. Finally, a rank order of all eligible submitted applications will be developed based on the peer reviewer scores. In the event that there are two or more applications with the same final score in the rank order, but the department has insufficient funds to fully support each of these applications, the department will apply the following tiebreaker procedure to determine which application or applications will receive a grant award. The first tiebreaker will involve selecting the application with the highest percentage of students who are Pell Grant recipients. Because the first tiebreaker uses the highest percentage of Pell Grant recipients, applicants should be careful to document the Pell recipient population served and explain how the project prioritizes students with high need. If after implementing this tiebreaker, there are still tied applications and insufficient funding to support each application, the Secretary will then implement the second tiebreaker, which will involve selecting the application or applications with the smallest total amount of their grant funds allocated toward indirect costs. And finally, if there is a need, a third tiebreaker may be used, which would look at the application or applications that promote the equitable geographic distribution of program grantees. For applicant notifications, please note that the Department's Office of Legislation and Congressional Affairs will inform Congress first regarding applications approved for new program funding. After Congress is notified, successful applicants will receive award notices by email. We will not release any funding information before Congress is notified. For unsuccessful applicants, they will be notified in writing following our notice to Congress and to the successful applicants of their new awards. Now we will review additional application information and resources. As we've mentioned before, the Annie is the official orientation document for this program competition. Please carefully review the Annie, understand the requirements contained therein, and plan ahead. Make sure that your organization is registered in both SAMS.gov and grants.gov. Also, make sure that your registration is active and up to date. The individual with the credentials at your organization should ensure that their username and password are up to date and that they have met any other requirements necessary to keep their credentials current within those two federal systems. In addition, ensure that your organization's UEI number is up to date and active in SAM. If the UEI number is inactive, or if there's any kind of problem with the UEI number, the application will not be accepted by grants.gov. From our experience, we can share that these types of issues are rarely solved within a day. So we strongly recommend that you check on the status of your UEI number with plenty of time. If you are not already registered with grants.gov, we encourage you to register early, as this registration process involves many steps and usually requires a few days to finalize. Please remember to write clearly, including evidences, citations, and research wherever appropriate. We remind you that peer reviewers only have what you provide in your application to evaluate the strengths of your proposal. Therefore, provide as much detail as you can as you craft your responses to the selection criteria and the priorities. We also strongly encourage you to submit early. Do not wait until the last day to submit your application, because if you run into any type of technical issue, you may not have sufficient time to resolve that issue before the deadline has passed. Also, as we mentioned earlier, monitor frequently the grants.gov website for periods of unavailability due to scheduled maintenance. When the grants.gov website is undergoing maintenance, it is unavailable for use, and you will not be able to submit or use the application system at all during the scheduled maintenance times. All applications must be submitted electronically through grants.gov. As the ANI indicates, you are required to follow the common instructions for applicants published in the Federal Register on August 29, 2025. We include a link to that document in the ANI. Notice that the grants.gov site does not allow applicants to unsubmit applications. Therefore, if after you've submitted an application, you discover that you need to make changes, additions, or some other type of modification, you must resubmit an application in grants.gov. If there is more than one application from an organization within the queue, the department will accept and process the application with the most recent date, time, stamp validation. As stated before, we must receive your application through grants.gov no later than Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026 at 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. Late applications will not be accepted, and we strongly suggest that you submit your application several days before the deadline. Again, please monitor grants.gov for unavailability due to scheduled maintenance, because you will not be able to submit applications during scheduled maintenance. For technical assistance on how to navigate grants.gov or how to apply for grant opportunities, refer to the link in the first bullet regarding the workspace overview of grants.gov. If you need additional assistance, even after reviewing the workspace overview, please reach out directly to grants.gov, either by phone or email. They also have a comprehensive self-service knowledge base that you may also want to review for additional application tips and guidance. This is a screenshot of the grants.gov homepage for your reference. To search for the Basic Needs competition, go to this section of grants.gov, as you can see from the screenshot, and enter the opportunity number ed-grant-26-034. Once you enter the opportunity number, you will be taken to the grant opportunity, where you will see the ANI and all of the related documents related to this competition announcement. And the last tab, marked Package, is where you access the application documents to submit your application package once you are ready to do so. In addition to the resources that are included on the opportunity page in grants.gov, we will also post resources for this grant competition on the Basic Needs Program webpage that was linked in the previous slide. Please use the application checklist to ensure you have submitted all required forms and elements for this competition. This checklist is also contained in the ANI document. Make sure that you include each of these documents in your application package so that it is complete. The standard documents are the SF-424, which is the application cover sheet, and then the supplemental information form SF-424 for Department of Education grants. There is a new budget information sheet this year as we are partnering with the Department of Labor. This form is the budget information for non-construction programs named SF-424A. There are detailed instructions on how to complete this form and all of the forms on this checklist in the ANI document. You must also submit an abstract, as we mentioned earlier. Attach your document to the abstract form document in the grants.gov application. The project narrative is where you provide your responses to the selection criteria and the priorities if applicable. Make sure that you submit that project narrative within the project narrative attachment form. This is very important. Remember that this is the most important part of your application. So double check that the project narrative has been attached and that it is readable. The next item is the budget narrative form that we have discussed previously. The budget narrative is sometimes called the budget justification. And as we mentioned previously, this is where you provide a narrative justification for the costs that you are requesting as reflected on the SF 424A budget form. There is also a section called the Other Attachments form. The first document that should be in the Other Attachments form is a document related to the competitive preference priority if you are responding to it, or to any of the invitational priorities if you are responding to them. This year, we have asked our applicants to provide separate documents attached to the Other Attachments form. In this section, if you are responding to the competitive preference priority, you must include a letter of attestation identifying the qualifying state agency that will carry out the proposed project. Please review the ANI for additional guidance on what that letter of attestation should include. For the invitational priorities, you should include a narrative that is no more than 3 pages for each priority, describing your approach to responding to the invitational priority or priorities. These responses should be concise, specific, and aligned with the main project narrative. If you are a nonprofit organization, or one of your partners or subgrantees is a nonprofit organization, this is where you include your proof of nonprofit status. The Other Attachments form is also the section where you would include CVs or resumes for key project personnel. Additionally, here is where you include letters of support from members of your consortium or other partners. And you can include a bibliography or works cited document here to bolster the evidence that you have provided for your project design, your evaluation, and other elements of the design of your proposal. The last section is the Assurances and Certifications section. In this section, you are required to submit the standard form LLL as well as the grants.gov lobbying form. On this slide, we provide you with additional applicant resources, including a direct link to grants.gov. We've listed again the opportunity number for this program competition, the website for SAM.gov, the program website for the Basic Needs Program, additional technical assistance resources for Department of Education grantees, including the uniform guidance, a link to videos and other resources for grants training and management opportunities through the Department of Education's website, a link to the Department of Labor's AI literacy framework, and a link to America's Talent Strategy. We sincerely hope that this technical assistance webinar has been helpful to you, and we wish you all the best in applying for this competition opportunity. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out via the program's official inbox at Basic Needs for Postsecondary Students Program at ed.gov. You are also welcome to reach out to the Basic Needs Program contacts, who are Dr. Robin Dabney at the email and phone number listed, and Ms. Kissy Chapman-Thaw at the email and phone number listed. Thank you again for your time and attention to today's webinar.